I followed the Sid Field, how to write a screenplay, 3-act structure into everything. That was my teacher in college. And he said to me, he said, Judd, every movie follows this paradigm of 3 acts. Then I showed him Memento, and he cried for 3 hours. Write what you know. So far, that is all I know how to do. I am not capable of writing about wizards, superheroes, or even people who live in Alaska. The furthest I have gotten from write what you know was a movie called You Don't Mess with the Zohan. He had abs and courage.
Write what you know is a fence around your imagination. Write whatever the fuck you want. Write what you don't know might be a better maxim.
The write what you know adage has done real harm sometimes to women in the industry. A lot of these executives are men, and they're like, I don't know what women know, but it might be this baking thing, but it's definitely not this multi-million-dollar franchise. And to that I say, I know that. I know how to do that. So, you know, let's write that too.
Write what you know, no good. I definitely wrote what I didn't know when I wrote a show about surgeons, because I don't know anything about surgery and blood makes me queasy. I think it's more fun to write what you don't know. You get to do a ton of research, you get to meet a lot of interesting people, and you get to have great fantasies.
Making your protagonist likable. I actually would kind of switch that on its head too and say, how do you make your protagonist a little unlikable? Like, we're all a little bit unlikable because we're human. And how do you make your antagonist a little bit likable? And you have to understand that narrative in order to understand how to counter it.
It's not about being likable or unlikable. It's just the idea that you're going for likable sort of cuts a lot of interesting stuff out for people. We got a lot of those notes when we were making Grey's Anatomy. Everybody wanted us to make Meredith Grey likable. And I refused to make her likable because I don't know any likable people. When I'm creating a character, I'm looking for someone who's interesting. I'm looking to make people who feel real.
They can be like a dick that you like, but they can't be an unlikable dick. You know what I mean?
Sex sells. Sexy sells. My favorite thing about doing network television, which I never thought would have been true, is that you have to force people to depend on their imaginations. And we've done some stuff that I think is far sexier than stuff you can see on cable because we're not showing everything. Sometimes for the shows, it's a shot that we don't use. Sometimes it's someone disappearing below frame. I think one time we did a shot that was just someone's hand, and clearly they were having a ton of sex, but you couldn't see what was going on. You gotta get creative. I mean, I've done 600 hours of television or something like that. We gotta get creative there.
Does sex sell? Sex with who? I think bad sex sells. Great sex does not sell. Because great sex you can get on your phone for free. I never think about adding sexiness. I always think about, is this entertaining? Has there been a big laugh for a while? I've never sat in an editing room and said, what do we have that's hotter? You don't want to know what I find hot.
Great artists steal. Maybe. I like to say great artists are influenced by or inspired by. I don't think anybody should be actually going for stealing. I think for me, in terms of television, I've been inspired by Aaron Sorkin. I'm the person who watched The West Wing like 5,000 times. I'm obsessed with Breaking Bad, so there's that, there's Vince. So there's a lot to be inspired by and a lot to go for.
Part of the fun for us at Westworld is we have an invitation with this show to make a show about a moribund genre, about a genre that lived and was the most important thing in the world for 30 years and then died. So we had an invitation to pillage the works of John Ford, Sergio Leone, Akira Kurosawa. You don't need a rule book to tell you how to write. All you need to do is absorb the storytelling that's come before, as we all do.
My influences are Gary Shandling, who I learned from when I worked at the Larry Sanders Show, Cameron Crowe, Nicole Holofcener, Amy Heckerling, Ivan Reitman, Harold Ramis, Billy Wilder. So I say great artists are influenced, and they should hold on to all of their residuals and their royalties.
Every story needs a beginning, middle, and end. Absolutely. There's nothing more annoying to me than a story that doesn't have a middle or a story that doesn't have an end. I see scripts like that all the time, and I reject them. I'm generally thinking series long. So to me, when I think I have an end and I get to an end that's completely different, there's no going back and changing it. You've sort of found your way there. For me, sometimes it's magical. Sometimes you feel like, oh my God, this works so much better, and it makes the beginning seem genius. And sometimes you think, I've rambled, and I hope nobody notices.
Well, if it stops, you have an end, and there is always a beginning, and then there's a middle part. So that's a dumb rule.
A lot of what people tell you about how to write is is nonsense, except for body posture, right? Ernest Hemingway used to write standing up.
I write like lying down, so that
works too.
well.